Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello on April 22nd, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between and around the world. Tonight is another program. We are talking to you about Spiritism. Spiritism, it all started with the third revelation with Allan Kardec, the Spirits book. So that's really, if you want to understand Spiritism, please read the Spirit books. You can find it on the EDICEI bookstore, which is on my blog. There's a link to it on my blog, I should say. I think it's only $9 for a paperback. You can also buy it on Amazon. It's a little bit more expensive. Oh, and the link on my blog is the picture of Allan Kardec up on the upper left, right-hand corner. Just click on that picture. It'll take you right to the EDICEI bookstore, where you can get all of your books on Spiritism. So it's a great location. But you can also find them on Amazon if you want to buy them there. And then all of Allan Kardec's books are available in PDF. So it's a nice, exciting. So what I have been doing is I've said before that I've taken the writings of the Reverend G. Vowell Owen, and I have been categorizing them into different sections so we can understand everything that he said. And what we're talking about now is this book, Spirits and the Spirit Universe, Book 2 of Spiritism, the Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. The links to that, you can find that on my blog, nwspiritism.com. And when I post this on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, NW Spiritism. You can find that also. There is a link to that on my blog. I will post a link to the book on that YouTube channel too. I've also posted smaller videos explaining different parts of Spiritism. So the exciting thing about the Reverend G. Vowell is everything he told us. In fact, I was just talking to a Spiritist. He was in Seattle. He came from Minas, in the state of Minas Gerais, and he was. We talked a little bit, and he had not heard of the Reverend G. Vowell, and he came from a Spiritist family. His great grandfather, his grandfather, I should say, was a Spiritist. His mother and father Spiritist. He's a Spiritist. His grandfather's still alive. So it's, very exciting talking to him. He knew a lot of different aspects of Spiritism and gave me a lot of great advice. It was wonderful talking to him last night. But what I think the important thing is the fact that the Reverend G. Vowell exposed a lot more about spirits, the organization of the spirit world, the higher levels, where we're headed after we reach that first level of heaven. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things about how we should be on earth. There's nothing better than Jaco Savier's, Yvonne Pierre's, Devaldo Franco, Leon Denis, Allan Kardec's, about how we should, change our life, how we should act, all that is as far as where we are here on this physical plane. But the Reverend G. Vowell, there's actually more. It's complementary to what you hear in the other writings by Spiritist mediums. So now let's talk about the power of a spirit. And this is really interesting because this will tell you why you're here on Earth, because it explains to you why we have to go through such a strenuous training, because we're going to have all this power. And why would you give to someone who had ill intent, right? Why would you give to someone who was envious, prone to anger, petty, all those things? The answer is no, you would not. And of course, the power of a spirit depends upon the level of heaven they have achieved. And as a spirit ascends, they become less dense, more energy, and less matter. Energy implies more force and more capabilities. Now remember, spirits live in a different dimension than we do. There are different set of natural laws. As example, the speed of light is the limit of velocity in our known universe, our physical universe. The speed of thought is the rule in the spirit realm. To travel, one thinks of the destination, the distance is covered almost instantaneously. When the late great Brazilian medium Francisco, also called Chico C. Xavier, was in a hospital room near the end of his long life, there was a camera crew outside the hospital. They had their camera trained on Chico's window. And after Chico was able to leave the hospital, he told people that he was visited by spirits while recovering. So this was interesting. So the camera crew went back and examined the footage. So they, okay, we will find out. Okay, was there any physical, any physical proof that they visited him? So they had this camera crew all the whole time he was there, trained on his window, like from below, they trained up to above. He was like, I think on the 7th or something. He was on a higher floor. So the camera crew went back and examined the footage, and they noticed a streak of light descending from the sky right into the hospital room. And the flash took less than a second. And was it the reflections of high spirits on their way to see Chico? One can't tell. But they only saw the flash once on film, and it occurred around the time said when Chico said spirits came to see him. So there's a little bit of evidence that you can think about, right? Because when we are spiritists, right, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to, within ourselves, with our own rational mind, determine, does the spirit world, does Jesus, does God exist? Why are we here? Not because I tell you, not because someone else tells you, not because a priest or rabbi or a monk tells you. It's because you determine what you believe, and then you put in the place and you create the strength of that belief. So that's important. It's up to each of us individually. So the spirit universe came before our physical universe. So other dimensions and universes exist. How many and how they're layered and interact is still a mystery. I suspect that as a spirit ascends into the creative hierarchy, their span of travel and control extends over multiple dimensions and touches universes teeming with life. God has created a system of promoting spirits to ever-increasing responsibilities and power. Thus, our universe is most probably not expansive enough to warrant a continual stream of newly qualified workers. That's what we are, right? We are in training. We are primitive spirits who hopefully will become mature someday. So hence, new universes and additional dimensions are being created, continuously expanding, forever evolving, opening new opportunities for world building, terraforming, and guiding the evolution of a variety of species. You are being groomed for a great future. Your power will, at some time in the future, be almost omnipotent. Hence, your current training is not trivial and is meant to exercise your character to the limits. So when you have problems, say, oh, okay, I understand this problem. It must have been here to repair some deficit in my personality. Okay, so let's start with the different powers. So let's start with the first level of heaven. So when you are released from your outer casing and free from its dense shield, you are once again a spirit. You are now thinking with your spirit brain instead of a poor receptor of images, thoughts, and memories. Because after all, even the spirit world tells us our physical body is limited, right? And then our senses, right? We're told we only sense about 1/8 around us. Our senses are much more expanded as a spirit. And I talked about that in my previous section as far as the attributes of a spirit. But now we're talking about the power of spirit. So you are now in a universe where mere thought translates into action. And if you are lucky enough, actually, if you've worked hard and cast off your materialism and selfishness, to ascend to one of the first levels of heavens, you shall find out that you have powers that you only dreamed of when you were a child. As an example of the ability to create something from thin air is in the Reverend Owen's book, which is a collection of 4 of his books, Life Beyond the Veil, in the Lowlands of Heaven section. Again, what I've done is taken his books, which is 4 of his books, plus some other books he wrote, and I've categorized them all in different things. And that, of course, is in this one, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, book 2. I think you'd find it very interesting. So, in that section, his mother talks about herself and members of her learning group experimenting with using their brains, their spirit brains, to create. And this is what happened. The group retreated to an open space. And he decided to try to make a statue of a cousin of an elephant, a type that is no longer on Earth. Then she tells us what occurred. This is what she said. We all sat around the open space and concentrated our wills on the object to be produced. Very quickly it appeared and stood there before us. We were much surprised at the quickness of the result. But from our point of view, there were two defects. It was much too large, for he had failed to regulate the combination of our wills in due proportion. And it was much more like a live animal than a statue, for many had thought in their minds of the live animal itself, and also of its coloring. And so the result was a mixture between stone and flesh, and many points were disproportionate. The head too large and the body too small, and so on, showing that more power had been concentrated on some parts than on others. It is thus that we learn our imperfections and how to remedy them in all our studies. We experiment, then examine the results, and try again. We did so now. So think about what she just said now. Is that amazing? And she was working in a group. Now, did you hate to work in groups during your school years? Like one person never did any work, another was just annoying. And graduating to the real world, we learned that we almost always had to work in groups, and the same cast of characters were with us. And working in complete harmony was rare, but an extremely satisfying experience. Well, in the spirit world, this is a necessity. But of course, people work more in harmony. Why? Why? Because of the law of affinity. Like attracts like lives with like. People at one level of heaven come together. They are already, the fact that they are there together are within some sort of harmony. Now, only high, powerful spirits are able to create entirely on their own. So all must have the same dedication and willingness to work together. So the thirst for showing off and receiving the best rewards would most certainly hinder the success of the group. And that's why selflessness must be abandoned before one is allowed to ascend into heaven. Just one of those primitive characteristics we have to abandon. And the group determined to give it another attempt, and they selected different objects for the next try. So this is what Jivao's mother told him. And of course, she was one of the first people to actually talk to him when he started noticing that he had medium powers. This is what she said. Taking our minds off the statue so produced and talking together, it gradually faded away. So again, just take a look at that first sentence. When they stopped their willpower on that object, it just like vanished. Imagine that. Okay, I'll go on. And then we were fresh and ready for our next trial. We decided not to select the same model as before. Our minds would probably run into more or less the same grooves. So we, this time, chose a tree with fruit on it, something like an orange tree, but not quite the same. We were more successful this time. The chief points of failure were that some of the fruit was ripe and some unripe, and the leaves were not correct in color, nor the branches rightly proportioned. And so we tried one thing after another and found ourselves a little more successful each time. You can imagine somewhat the joy of such schooling as this and the laughter and happy humor which results from our mistakes. Those among you who think that this life we never make jokes and never laugh will have to revise their ideas someday, or they'll find a strange company, or perhaps we shall find them so. But they soon learn what the love of this land is, where we can be perfectly natural and unrestrained, and indeed are compelled to be so if we wish to be accepted into respectable company, as you would phrase it. I fear the obverse is rather true on earth, is it not? Ah, well, live and learn, and those who live in this life not merely exist are worse, learn very quickly. And the more we learn, the more we marvel at the forces of our command. So think about what she just said. Imagine having to think of every detail, every stem and small branch of a tree or bush. A hard task indeed. I couldn't do this right now. And there's an example of spirits in the first level of heaven performing a similar feat in a different celestial city. No Solar. In the book Psychograph by Chico Xavier, the spirit under Luis is a part of a large group that's preparing a chamber to accept a very high spirit. Now I'm going to bring this example to show you how Jivao, who wrote these books in the beginning of the 20th century, early 1900s, and Chico, who wrote a lot about the No Solar, I think starting in 1944, I could be wrong. I forgot when No Solar was out, but somewhere around that time. And then it went all the way for like 20 years or more afterwards. And it shows you the parallel, and it shows you that how Jiva Owen was a spiritist. And so in the book, the spirit Andre Luis, they are preparing the chamber to accept a very high spirit, and the high spirit evidently has not materialized in the lower plane for quite a while. Therefore, the assembly was tasked to supply the required conditions for the high spirit, so he could come to the location and give a lecture. And the audience, which was Andre Luis's part of it, was instructed to fill the chamber with an artificial environment, with still waters, a robust tree, with vegetation and leaves on the tree. And Andre Luis describes the beautiful scene in the chamber. Then the instructor addresses the group sternly. He says, "My friends, your task has not been fully completed. Pay close attention to the uncompleted details and give a more effective outward expression to your inner power. You still have 15 minutes to finish your work." So now think of this. So I believe Andre Luis went through training just like Jiva Owen's mother. Otherwise, why would he be part of the group and know how to create something in that chamber? Now, they didn't really mention that, did they, in the books about Andre Luis? There's a lot of things they don't mention, right? Remember, we're just being told these things. It's like we are learning about the spirit world by peering through like a little keyhole, right? They're telling us. That's why we have to read everything really carefully. That's why people love to study these books, because you never know what sentence you read that gives you another epiphany, right? Of, oh, okay, this is what they mean. So like this is one of them, right? Where Andre Luis says, okay, he created this whole small environment in his chamber. But, did he do that just because they told him to and he never had training? Of course not. He must have had training. He must have gone through approximate type of training that Jiva Owen's mother did. So for us here on this hard, rocky planet, where we are seemingly incapable of focusing our attention for a few minutes at a time, life in heaven is another type of challenge. Our brawn isn't as important as our brain. Our strength is centered in our will. And our will is only as effective as our ability to concentrate. And we must marshal our resources and be free of the distractions of earth. Hate, envy, desire for position above others, lust for new material objects are all baggage that must be discarded before we can walk through the gates of heaven. And we are told of this in the Bible. Enter the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter through it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are a few who find it, in Matthew 13:14. So, and this is another thing about Spiritism, is when I read the Bible when I was younger, before I learned about Spiritism, there's many things I didn't quite understand. But Spiritism just lets you, and that's why the Gospel According to Spiritism, one of Allan Kardec's book, I don't have it in my hand, but it's the Gospel According to Spiritism, not this one. But of course, you can still find it at EDICI bookstore, is so interesting because they'll go through and they'll talk about, things in the Bible and what they really mean once you understand Spiritism. It's fascinating. So, of course, the way is narrow because you have to have immense, mental discipline to be there. And why do you have to have immense mental discipline? Because you have immense power. The spirit world started notifying us of the conditions to enter paradise more than 2,000 years ago. And they are providing more specific information, examples to us in our current epoch. Truthfully, it is a tough path to follow. I have failed more than I have succeeded. It's an uphill battle, but it only needs a small forward movement every day. So, now, let's talk about the next thing. Now, this is another interesting one, is the power of a name in the spirit world. Now, I'm sure that, like those who have studied ancient Egypt, the beliefs of the Israelites, and knowledge about the occult in many cultures, understand that a name has power. To invoke a name alerts the spirit they're being called. And according to some accounts, the calling of a name gives a person certain advantages over the spirit. E.A. Wallace Budge, in his book Egyptian Magic, tells us of the following about the power of the names to the Egyptian. Now, I'm not talking about Spiritism here. I'm just trying to give you that how ancient religions, the occult, there's a lot of things they find interesting, and there's a lot of things that are tangential to Spiritism. And Spiritism tells us why this is important. Because remember, a lot of what Allan Kardec told us, that the Druids know, the Buddhists knew, Socrates knew. So, I mean, it's just a lot of information was out there that people gathered. It just didn't just come from Spiritism. But what Spiritism helps us is it really helps us stand the process and gives us a better feel for these things and gives us a good direction. And, telling us that, okay, how do we tell good spirits from spirits who are ignorant or just, having fun? So let's go on about what E.A. Wallace Budge said in his book, Egyptian Magic. This is what the Egyptians believe. And of course, if you read Emmanuel's book, On the Way to the Light, he says the Egyptians understood the spirit world probably better than anybody else. They really understood it. So this is what he said. The Egyptians, like most Oriental nations, attached very great importance to the knowledge of names, and the knowledge of how to use and make mention of names which possess magical powers was a necessity for both the living and the dead. It was believed that if a man knew the name of a god or a devil and addressed him by it, he was bound to answer him to do whatever he wished. And the possession of the knowledge of the name of a man enabled his neighbor to do him good or evil. So you see this still in a lot of occult stuff like that is like, okay, the power of the name. Well, what's interesting is the Reverend Jiva Owen was told in communications with his mother about the power of the name. And in his seances with his mother, he encounters problems and seemingly hesitation in getting the names of spirits with whom his mother converses. And he asks his mother the question, why is it so difficult for you to give names? She reveals some details, yet there is still much hidden in her explanation. And this is what she said. This is so interesting. There is also difficulty in explaining the difficulty. From your point of view, so apparently simple a matter, right? Let us put it this way. You know that with the old Egyptians, the name of a god or goddess was much more than a name as understood by the hardy materialistic Anglo-Saxon from whose race came the questions, what's in a name? Well, from our point of view, and also that of ancient wisdom of Egypt, based on data from this side of the veil, meaning it's in the spirit world, there is a great deal in a name. Even in the mere repetition of some names, there is actual power and sometimes peril that we know now as we did not win on earth. And so here we acquire a reverence for the entity, the name, which to you would probably seem foolish. Nevertheless, it is partly for this reason that names do not come through you so plentiful as many rather feeble investigators would wish. So this is amazing. So we are told the mere repetition of some names, there is actual power and sometimes peril. And I have read hints of this in different spiritualist literature, such as the example when a person talks about a recently deceased friend at his funeral. Excuse me. The man who was the incarnate, he was physically alive, comments that his friend witnessed a murder. And at the very mention of the murder's name, the low spirit, and Andre Luis was watching this whole thing, the low spirit arrived wanting to know who accused them of murder. This was in the book Liberation, of course, by Chico Xavier. And even, it's the spirit workers are cautioned not to speak the names of certain low, dangerous spirits, lest they quickly come to thwart the plans of benevolent spirits to help a soul in distress. So what Jiva Owen's mother told Jiva Owen was also told to Andre Luis. Now, Owen's mother attempts to fully describe the complexity of the situation. Also, the mere utterance and transmission of some of these names is, when we are in this earth region, a matter of more difficulty than you would perhaps deem. It is a subject, however, which is hard to explain to you, and only one which you will be able to understand when you have become more familiar with the fourth dimension, which obtains here, which term also we use for want of a better. We just refer you to 2 or 3 instances and there leave the matter. One is the giving to Moses of the name of the great officer of the Supreme who visited him. Moses asked for that name and got it. And neither he nor anyone else to this day has been able to say what it means. Isn't that interesting? That he asked for a certain name. Great officer of the Supreme who visited him. Oh, Sylvia. Good night for you too in Brazil. So then she goes on to this. Then the lesser angel who came, this is what she's telling Jivaon. Then the lesser angel who came to Jacob asked for his name, and it was refused to him. The angels who came to Abraham and to others in the Old Testament very seldom gave their names. Likewise, in the New Testament, most of the angels who come to minister earth's people are simply so called, and where the name is given, as in the case of Gabriel, is little understood as to his inner significance. Of the new name which no man, that is man on earth, knoweth. So all of what she said rings true with what I have read before. And I believe that in the vast majority of Spiritism books, we are given the names of spirits that may mean something to us, but isn't the official name of the spirit being written about. For instance, Socrates, who it has been reported is a minister of Christ, is mentioned by his past name, a name bequeathed to him when he came to Athens, Greece, 400 years before Jesus' arrival on earth. The name Socrates is mentioned in the books by Allan Kardec. And we have been told that Socrates was a lead in editing the books by the spirit Andre Louise. Again, even Andre Louise was not the true name of the spirit. That name was just picked. In fact, the name was picked. I think there was a small boy next to Chico, and the spirit said, "What's the boy's name?" Andre Louise. He goes, "I'll use that name." So Socrates' name we know because of his historical context, but his actual spirit name may be altogether different. And lastly, Jivaon asked his mother one last question on the subject. So this is what he asked: "What is your name, mother? I mean, your new name. Is it permissible for you to give it?" And this is what she told him: "Permissible, yes, but not wise, dear. You know I would give it if it were so. But for the present, I must withhold even from you, knowing that you will understand my love, even if my motive is not very clear." So at the end, Jivaon's mother determines it best not to reveal a spirit name, which is probably exactly, very true, because he would have written it down and everyone would have known it. So exactly what power is the knowledge of the exclusive name of the spirit entails, I'm not sure. But given the knowledge that our thoughts contain our unique identification, which may have our spirit name encoded within it, and that our feelings radiate out from us to the universe, I do believe that a spirit who goes by a name we call will at the least be aware of our inquiry. And therefore, just as you don't want to give out your cell phone number or your email to anyone who asks, because then you'll be bombarded with spam, right? Same thing with Ghost Spirit name, because you call that name, and then you will always hear about it, right? Because it's a unique identifier, right? Because that's what Emmanuel told us, I think in the book, The Domains of Mediumship, sometimes in Andre Louise's books, the preface is actually is so exciting because there's information there. And in the preface, he talked about we each have a unique identifier, and our thoughts go out to the world. That's why you have to just read everything on these books. It's amazing. So we've talked about creation, right? We talked about name. Now let's talk about faith, right? What is faith? And that's willpower and wisdom and certainty, right? Together. And in what's the most startling aspects of the books is the role of faith. And not faith as we know it, but faith as a real power, the ability to conjure far beyond any of our earthly fantasies. So what was presented in Spiritism when they talked about this? So Spiritism burst upon the world in the 1850s. And in a series of questions posed by Allan Kardec. So let me take you back a bit so we can go back and talk about how this all works, about the power of spirits. Allan Kardec took answers from multiple mediums throughout Europe. This is how Allan Kardec codified this book. This is why this book is amazing. Remember, Allan Kardec was not a medium. Of course, he was an inspirational medium. We all are inspirational medium. But what he did is he made a list of 1,019 questions. And he gave it to different mediums throughout Europe. And he did not use whatever response. He made sure the response to the same question, but with different mediums, were similar. And then, only then, did he use it for the Spirits book. And that's why he's called the codifier of Spiritism. So Spiritism, which was promised in the third revelation by Christ in the New Testament, We are told that we must pass through multiple lives in a quest to become a more loving, charitable, and fraternal and honest person, that we live in a world which is tailored as a campus for us to learn the qualities that we are required to attain before we are allowed to ascend in the spirit hierarchy. As I said before, right? The door of heaven is narrow. In essence, we should follow the golden rule: do unto others as you would do unto them in all things. And the outward trappings of churches, rituals, rote prayers, dietary restrictions were all unnecessary. All that is required is the goodness of heart. Now, needless to say, this provoked an immense backlash from organized religion. The Catholic Church organized book burnings of Allan Kardec's The Spirit's Book. So that since that time, there's been more information presented to us, most spectacularly via the mediumship of Francisco Chico Xavier. Now, he psychographed more than 450 books. And I think actually Geraldino, I listened to one of his lectures. It was almost like 500 now, because they've been taking, a lot of the messages and they put them together, and they've been actually publishing more books, all dictated to him by spirits, angels, and other high spirits, all with the mission to inform humans on our planet the correct modes of behavior. Now, within all the spiritualist literature I've read to date, I've not seen one mention of any bigoted ideas. We are told that spirits may incarnate as men or women, different races and different cultures, and therefore we should be kind. Oh, absolutely. Matthew said, are you open for suggestions for possible future subjects? Absolutely. I would love suggestions. Have you ever heard of Edgar Cayce? So that is something I've actually have articles where I quote Edgar Cayce. Let me step back from here. We're talking about faith for a second, talk about Edgar Cayce, I can do that in a later time. But I believe that he was absolutely a true psychic. And if you read, if you're interested in Edgar Cayce, and you read about Atlantis and Lemuria, right? And he talks about Atlantis a lot. They are also talked about in the books Beyond the Veil, and I also talked about in the books that I write, and they are also talked about in the books by Chico Xavier. So that there was you look at two different spiritist mediums, and they both mention Atlantis and Lemuria. So there's a lot of interesting information. And so, yes, I have read Edgar Cayce and found him amazing. And I do believe that there was a whole, I'm sure I get a lot off balance here, but this is such a really interesting subject that you got me onto, Matthew, that there was a huge civilization before us that we have no record of. And in fact, in the books by G. Vaughn, they say that they were actually all the way up where they had radio waves, and they had pretty advanced technology, but they were destroyed because their technology was more superior than their spirituality, their morality. Hopefully that doesn't happen to us. I think we're on track for that not to happen, but that's why we have to have and this is why we go through these times. Like right now, people say, "Oh, this is a horrible time. Everyone's so materialistic. We'll never be spiritual again." It's like the whole culture is that as soon as you talk about God or religion, you're just like shut down. Well, that will change. Okay, so I hope I teach you a bit. So again, if you're interested in giving me any other information or write it down, go to my blog, NW Spiritism. Hit on the contact me. Write me an email on the subject you want to talk about, and anything else or other suggestions. And I can do that either here on this talk, or I can make, I've been making 5-10 minute YouTube videos where I explain different parts of Spiritism. And I think that would be a great YouTube video too. Okay. So I was talking about Spiritism, and I haven't seen any bigoted ideas, right? Also that, you should be kind to different cultures, and therefore we should be kind and understanding to everybody. And the marriage is between two spirits, not just a male and female. And the length of time they're together is up to them and them alone. And remember, in the past, and in times like you could never get divorced, etc. In fact, even in the Spirit's book, they said, no, that's your own laws. So despite the resistance by organized religion, the supreme intelligence that pushed on continue to send us information about our future life as spirits, so that we may learn what is coming and why we're here in our frail physical bodies. And we seem weak and visible, right? Weak and vulnerable. And any adverse chain of events could wipe us off the planet any time. But we must realize that our perceived weakness is part of the plan to prepare us. Now, I'm getting to the point of faith, Rick. Actually, we are immortal souls unable to die. We are weak in our temporary body, and we have in our temporary body will degrade, right? But our spirit is indestructible. And we are here on this terra firma campus to mold our minds to be as perfect as our spirit bodies. And we are deliberately placed on a sphere with thousands of distractions so we may educate our minds to ignore and filter out destructive thoughts so that we may eventually acquire the ability to focus our concentration in any situation. And our first step is to find our way towards faith. And with faith, we can keep our attention on a bigger theme, a target superior to our daily worries and anxieties. Faith allows us to build a shield against destructive feelings. Conviction in a higher purpose acts as a ruby does to concentrate light from one of the first lasers. So what is faith? Well, Jesus tells us in Matthew 7, chapter verses 17 to 20, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say this to the mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Now, haven't we all tried to move objects with our mind, right? A pencil or a feather. Maybe we cheat and blow air to move it, right? Invariably, our experiments result in abject failure. We find out we can't move anything with our minds. At least some people actually I've heard that can, but most of us, yeah. And then it's probably something small. So what the heck was Jesus talking about? As in so many things in the Bible, he was foreshadowing our future, not on earth, but as a spirit, not a low spirit, but a high educated, pure spirit. And I first encountered the immense capabilities of spirituality when I read the book On the Way to the Light, psychographed by Francisco C. Xavier, again, dictated to him by Emmanuel. And the book is a survey of how the spirit realm has guided our planet from its formation. So in the book, Emmanuel tells us that a community of pure spirits govern our part of the universe. We are told that high spirits, of which Christ was a participant, created our solar system and placed planets in orbit. Emmanuel also recounted how our moon is created. This is what he said. In that computation of cosmic values, in which workers from the spirit plane labored under the merciful guidance of the Christ, the formation of Earth's satellite was ordered. The innermost details of the work plan to be carried out on the Earth would require the help of the moon. The moon would be the anchor for the Earth's equilibrium as it orbited around the seat of the system, and it would be a fountainhead of regulating forces for the planet's stability. Most of all, the newborn orb would need the moon's polarized light, whose gentle magnetism would play a decisive role in the ongoing drama of creation and the reproduction of all species in the various kingdoms of nature. So at first glance, the passage seems to mean that extremely high-level spirits actually assisted in the building of the moon, and somehow they pushed the moon into the correct orbit around the Earth. Exactly how this marvel of engineering was accomplished, I have no idea. It's such a big scale. But then, subsequently, as I read more books, which revealed the capabilities of high spirits, I began to see how the mind of a spirit, coupled with the twin attributes of faith and knowledge, could achieve what we on earth would consider to be miracles. Of course, Spiritism explains there are no such things as miracles, only phenomena which we can't explain but are self-evident to the wiser spirits. So think about this. Think about Jiva Owen's mother learning how to create a fruit tree, right? First an elephant and then a tree with fruit and leaves. She's being trained to do this. And as these very, very high spirits on the level of Christ, they're moving planets. They're creating suns. They're moving moons into orbit. All through. So, when Jesus said in the Bible, you can move mountains, it's actually you can move bigger than that. All depends on your level and how much the foundation of what you're at. That's why it's so important to read and for yourself to understand the ramifications of what Spiritism tells us. Another example. Here's another example of the possibility of the manipulation of matter And it comes from the passages I read in the book in the realms of mediumship. In English, there's also in the domains of mediumship, they have the same book under two different titles for some reason. Again, this is by Chico Xavier. There is a discussion of transporting matter created in the physical plane via spirits. So again, this is all about your discipline, your mind. During a medium's meeting, spirits in attendance took flowers made from ectoplasmic material and carried them through walls in our plane. So Andre Luis asked, how could this be possible? And he's informed by what I think is a very revealing answer. This is what he was told. There are technicians here who are skilled enough to dematerialize the physical elements and reconstruct them straight away, conscious of the responsibility they are undertaking. So hence, advanced spirits are able to take objects native to our sphere, the physical world, and dematerialize them enough to pass through what we would consider to be a solid formation, like a wall. To us, it's solid. The spirit world, it's not. Then almost instantaneously reform the object. Next, as the peak of the scientific advances will continue, Henri Louis is told this. In any construction of the physical realm, the clusters of atoms are not solid fortresses. Just as in the case of our own sphere of action, there is empty space in all formations, and through the elements interpenetrate. The day will come when earthly science will be able to reintegrate the units and constitution of atoms with the same assurance with which they are learning to disintegrate them. So this is kind of foreshadowing our future. So hence, a spirit, via the powers of their mind, along with an understanding of the divine laws, is able to construct a solid object and remake it at their will. A process that in some future date, we shall be able to reproduce with complex instruments, while learned spirits can accomplish the same feat with their will. And so again, there's parallelism, right? And there's more information between the Life Beyond the Veil, which is he was an English reverend in the Anglican Church. Of course, G. Vowell, he must have been the most wonderful person. He was, of course, then let go. He was defrocked because, of course, a reverend cannot believe in this type of stuff. So he lost his income. I believe Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and H.G. Wells got together with a bunch of people, created a trust fund for him so he could still give lectures and so forth. It's very interesting, his life. So then in creation, in book 2, there's more information about creation. This comes from a high spirit named Zabdiel. And the 10th level implies the sequence of stages of birth. And I tell this every time, right? When I talk about levels of heaven, this is just used in the Life Beyond the Veil. And they say that, we're just trying to be consistent here. Other people have different names for different levels. So the Zabdiel, who's the high spirit, has the power to control basic building blocks of the universe, known to us in Spiritism as universal fluid, and create not just an object, but life out of nothing, fully formed and functioning. Only in our fantasy literature would such a scene occur. And it was then I understood that as the spirit progresses, their ability to guide the divine forces increases until they possess, in our estimation, God-like powers, power to not only move mountains, but to construct entire ranges by focusing their will. So this is very interesting. Zabdiel explains faith as it is defined in the other world, right? The spirit world. This is what he said. According to your faith, be it unto you. That was said in the Bible, right? This stands as a promise of power today as when he first said it. And it may be claimed with full assurance of fulfillment. Only that faith must be present, and then the present enablement will be manifest in ways diverse, but with no uncertainty of cause and effect. Now, this is not alone to you, but to us here in these spheres, progress and progressive. It is the acquiring of faith and exercise that we study to compass, and that gotten, we are powerful to help others and ourselves to enjoy. For it is a delight and pleasure to give more than to receive, as he said. So faith is the keystone, but it must be surrounded by all the attributes of the golden rule, right? Love, charity, fraternity, forgiveness, and honesty. And without the supporting foundation, faith is not sufficient to unlock the potential within each of us to materialize our desires. since our intentions must be pure and void of any selfishness before we granted such command. And Zabdal tells us the difference between faith in our plane, and faith in the spirit dimension. This is what he said. But do not mistake the nature of faith and the using of it. In the earth life, it is of indefinite quality as mostly understood, something between trustfulness and a right understanding of what is truth. But here, when we study all things as to their essence, we know faith is more than this. It is the power capable of scientific analysis in a measure in correspondence with the progress made by any man. So in the spirit realm, faith is measured, right? You face it, okay, this person has much faith and this much willpower, and it corresponds to what level they are at. And then the circle is complete when we learn to practice total control over our emotions, while in the physical world and apply our loving will in a professional manner in the spirit realm. Only then, after a multitude of lives, painfully mastering our character and attitudes, can we graduate to a position of responsibility to be entrusted with such might. Now, when we were children, we would dream of having overwhelming power to perform great events. And those dreams of conjuring something out of nothing are visions of a distant future. We should not let go of our childhood aspirations. We ought to mold them into a strength and purpose to fashion our deepest intentions into energy for good. And the bottom line is that all this description is so much more than what you even see in any fantasy novel or science fiction novel. Is that as a spirit, think of the things in the Star Trek series, the Star Wars series, right? Where Star Trek, they have the replicator, they have the teleporter. In Star Wars, they have the Force that can help things. All these things are nothing compared to what we will be able to achieve as spirits in the spirit world. We are our own replicator. We take universal fluid, and with the power of our minds, after we learn and graduate, right, we create what we want to create. We can create life. There's an episode where Zabdal himself created a bird. I talked about it in one of my other previous episodes, so we could show children of what faith is. This is all fantastic. And that's why one should think of this very carefully and understand that just like, when, for training anybody for a very important job, training is hard, right? A doctor, it takes years and years to become a doctor. Why? Because they have power over life and death. You don't want an incompetent doctor. You don't want an incompetent pilot. A pilot is guiding, could be hundreds of passengers on this plane. He has their life. A doctor has people's lives. As spirits, as you go higher in our spirit, you have people's lives. You have the evolution of planets. You have evolution of life. You have so much that you are responsible for. And that's why we go through the trials and tribulations that we have to go. And that's why when we have something thrown at us that we don't like, we have to sit back and say, okay, why did that happen? What am I supposed to learn from this? This is really difficult to get to that point. I'm still not completely there, but I'm trying. It's when life throws these things at you, is sit there and not reject them and say, but think about why, what lesson are we supposed to learn from this? Because if the more you understand Spiritism, and the more you get into why we're on Earth, why are good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, and why is there such chaos in the world, it explains everything. It's not chaos at all. It's all everyone going through different classes, and the connectability. It's just amazing how they fashion all this will be just amazing and wonderful to figure out once I get on the other side, if I'm allowed in. Who knows? But I would love to find out, because it's we're all here for a purpose. That's something I don't want anybody to forget. We are here for a purpose, and our purpose is to improve ourselves. And don't hit yourself if you don't improve in one life. And no one does that. Well, maybe there's one star that does that, but I certainly have it. It's going to take multiple lives, and as long as we keep making progress, and the more you make progress and understand why we should be making progress, that is the key. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. It was, again, wonderful to have everyone part of our talk. And of course, we'll continue on the Power of Spirits on next Sunday. So please share this, share this video, share this live stream on Facebook with other Facebook pages. Tell people about Spiritism. Tell people about nwspiritism.com so that they can, read about Spiritism. Please, again, share the videos. I said before, tell them about the YouTube channel. Whatever you can. I think it's that we are here listening to this for a very good reason, to try and help people understand their life and how to look at it from a 50,000-foot level. Again, our society is so materialistic, and I know it's hard. It's hard breaking through that veil, because people don't even want to talk about religion or God. People don't know. I don't want to hear it. But if the subject comes up, I'm not talking about forcing people. That's not how spiritists do it. Subject comes up, please help them. Anyway, God bless you. I'll put on our ending credits. I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in a direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw, as in Northwest, spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.